All right, let's dive in. This time, we're heading way back, like even before the dinosaurs roamed the Earth. We're talking turtles.
Oh, yeah, turtles are fascinating.
I've been watching this YouTube video, The History of Turtles,
Mhm.
A Journey Through Time, from the channel The Jungle, and I gotta say, I'm hooked.
It's a good one.
I had no idea. These creatures, they seem so simple, but they've got a history over 200 million years old.
Yeah, that's way older than the dinos.
Whoa, hold on. Turtles predate the dinosaurs.
They do, yeah. It always kind of blows people's minds. We think of dinosaurs as like the ultimate ancient creatures, but turtles were already swimming around when those T-Rexes were just, I don't know, twinkles in evolution's eye.
Uh-huh. That's a great way to put it. So we're talking like Triassic period for these early turtles.
Exactly, right back in the Triassic. And back then, their ancestors, scientists call them stem reptiles, didn't look anything like the turtles we see today. They were small, more like lizards, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and get this, no shells.
What? No shells? So like just little lizard dudes running around. How did they ever,
To become the iconic shelled creatures we know. That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is. I mean, that shell is like their whole thing. How did it even happen?
Well, that shell is a masterpiece of evolution, millions of years in the making. We start seeing the first turtles with shells around 220 million years ago, still in the Triassic.
So they were ahead of the curve, shell-wise.
They were pioneers. And the crazy thing is that shell isn't just like some add-on, It's fused right into their skeleton, part of their rib cage and spine.
So it's like their insides are outsides. That's wild.
It is wild. Like, imagine if our rib cage was on the outside. Talk about protection.
Right. That's some next-level defense. And it's clearly been working for them. I mean, they're still here.
200 million years strong, can't argue with results. Now, when we talk about turtles today, there are two main groups. You've got the Cryptodira and the Pleurodira.
Those are some serious names. What's the difference?
Neck action. It all comes down to how they retract their necks. The Cryptodira, that's most of the turtles we're familiar with, they pull their necks straight back into their shells.
Makes sense.
But the Pleurodira, they're mostly in the southern hemisphere. They fold their necks sideways along their bodies. They can't retract them fully into the shell.
So same shell, different neck game. Evolution is so weird.
It is, but that's what's cool about it, right? It's like nature is constantly experimenting, trying out different solutions. From one ancestor, you get all this amazing diversity. And speaking of diversity, let's talk about where these guys live and what they're up to these days. You've got your marine turtles, freshwater turtles, and then the land dwellers, the tortoises.
Yeah, okay, so let's break those down.
All right, imagine you're diving in some warm tropical water, and you come face to face with a leatherback turtle. Massive. They can get huge, and they live almost their entire lives out in the ocean.
Wow, that's a far cry from the little painted turtles I used to catch in the pond as a kid.
It is. And yet they share a common ancestor. Evolution is amazing like that. Your painted turtles, those are your classic freshwater turtles. Happy as can be in ponds, rivers, lakes. And then you've got the tortoises. Those guys are the landlubbers. Often bigger, heavier. Think the Galapagos Islands, those giant tortoises roaming around.
Oh, yeah, the Galapagos tortoises are iconic.
Right. Each group perfectly adapted to their environment. And that even plays into their diet, Not all turtles eat the same stuff. You've got your omnivores, herbivores, carnivores, the whole shebang.
Really? That's surprising. I guess I just figured they all munch on lettuce or something.
Nope. Those leatherbacks we talked about, they're mainly jellyfish eaters. Can you imagine?
Freaking turtles eating those wobbly things. That's wild.
Those other marine turtles, like the green sea turtles, they graze on seagrass or they'll munch on crabs. It all depends on where they are and what's available.
So what about those freshwater turtles? What are they eating?
They're opportunistic eaters, those guys. They'll grab aquatic plants, insects, basically whatever they can find in their watery world. Not picky eaters, that's for sure.
Makes sense. And the tortoises, I'm guessing they're the vegetarians of the group.
You got it. Grasses, leaves, fruits, that's what's on their menu. And as they're munching their way around, they're actually doing this super important job. They're dispersing seeds.
Wait, hold on. How do they do that?
It's pretty cool, actually. They eat the fruit, the seeds pass through their system unharmed, and then get deposited far away from the parent plant through it's like they're planting the seeds for future forests.
So they're like the gardeners of their ecosystems. But how do they even find all this food? Do they have like special hunting skills or something?
They've each got their own tricks depending on what they're eating and where they live. Marine turtles, for example, they rely on their sense of smell. They've got amazing eyesight, which is pretty important when you're trying to find a jellyfish in the vast ocean.
It's like they've got built-in sonar.
Right. And freshwater turtles, they'll use those long necks to their advantage, reaching into the mud or under rocks to snag a snack.
So they're like the ultimate reachers.
Exactly. And tortoises, they're mostly about the sense of smell. They're not aggressive hunters, more like patient foragers, just taking their time, sniffing out their next meal.
Makes sense. And speaking of traveling for food, I know some turtles are famous for going on these massive migrations. Can you tell me more about that?
Oh, yeah, the migrations are incredible. For some species, finding enough food means traveling across entire oceans. It's mind-blowing.
Wow, thousands of miles across the ocean. How do they even know where they're going?
It's this crazy combination of factors. Scientists are still figuring it all out, but it seems like they use the Earth's magnetic field, they follow ocean currents, and some even use the stars for navigation.
It's like they've got an internal GPS. That's insane.
I know, right? And it just goes to show how resilient and connected to the ocean they are. I mean, can you imagine swimming across an entire ocean?
Not a chance.
Yeah.
I get tired just thinking about it. It makes you wonder what those journeys must be like for them, all the challenges they face along the way. It's pretty remarkable. And speaking of remarkable things, let's talk about how turtles reproduce. I hear they've got some pretty unique habits.
Oh, they do. It's fascinating stuff. Most turtles lay eggs, but it's the whole process and where they do it that's so cool, especially for marine turtles.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So get this, marine turtles actually return to the same beaches where they were born to lay their own eggs. It's called natal homing.
Whoa, that's crazy. So they remember where they hatched and navigate back to the exact same spot.
It seems that way. It's one of the most incredible things in the animal kingdom. These turtles travel across vast distances, driven by some ancient instinct, just to reach the beach where they began their lives.
It's like they have this deep-rooted connection to their birthplace.
It's amazing, right? So imagine it's a moonlit night on a sandy beach. A female turtle emerges from the ocean. She's heavy with eggs. And she starts slowly making her way up the beach.
Sounds like a scene from a nature documentary.
It really is. She uses her powerful flippers to dig a nest in the sand, carefully lays her eggs, and then covers them up for protection.
It must be exhausting work.
Oh, it definitely is. And once she's done, she heads back to the ocean, leaving her eggs to incubate.
Wow, so she just trusts that everything will be okay. So what happens next? How do those tiny turtles make it out of those sandy nests?
Well, after a while, the eggs start to hatch. The exact time depends on the species and the temperature, but eventually, those little hatchlings emerge into the world.
It must be a pretty overwhelming experience for them coming from that dark nest into this bright new world. Do they know where to go?
They do. It's incredible. They're instinctively drawn towards the ocean, but it's a perilous journey. There are predators everywhere, and it's a tough environment for such small creatures.
I bet. It must be terrifying for them, those little hatchlings scrambling towards the water with birds and crabs trying to snatch them up. What are the chances of survival?
Unfortunately, the survival rate for hatchlings is pretty low. Only a small percentage make it to adulthood.
Wow, so the odds are really stacked against them.
They are. But the ones that do survive, those are some tough turtles. They've proven they're strong and determined. And you know what else? They're known for their longevity.
Wait, really? So they're like the marathon runners of the animal kingdom.
Exactly. Many turtles live for decades, and some, like the Aldabra giant tortoise, they can live for over 100 years.
Over 100 years. That's incredible. What's their secret?
It's a combination of things. They've got this slow metabolism, and they're perfectly adapted to their environments. They're not in a hurry. They take their time growing and maturing. In fact, it can take decades for some species to reach sexual maturity.
Wow, talk about patience. So they're not just long-lived, they're slow-growing too. It's like they've got this whole different concept of time than we do.
They do. They're the masters of slow and steady. And it's not just about individual survival, it's about their role in the ecosystem. Throughout their long lives, they contribute so much to keeping their environments healthy. They're not just ancient survivors, they're vital members of their communities.
Okay, I'm ready to hear about turtles as ecosystem heroes. What are some of the ways they make a difference?
Let's start with the marine turtles. We talked about how some of them eat jellyfish, right? Well, that's a key part of keeping those jellyfish populations in check. If there were too many jellyfish, it would disrupt the balance of the whole marine ecosystem.
So they're like the guardians of the ocean's equilibrium.
Exactly. They help make sure the whole system stays healthy and stable. And it's not just marine turtles. Freshwater turtles and tortoises have important jobs to do in their ecosystems, too.
I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Well, they help balance things out. They keep plant and insect populations in check. They contribute to nutrient cycling. It's all about maintaining that delicate balance.
So they're like the caretakers of their environments.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And remember how we talked about them dispersing seeds?
Yeah.
Especially the tortoises.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
Right. Well, that's crucial for plant regeneration and for the overall health of their habitats.
It's amazing to think about how these creatures, just by going about their lives, are having such a huge impact on their surroundings. It
Yeah.
really makes you realize how interconnected everything is and how important every species is, no matter how big or small.
It does. It's a reminder that we can't just focus on ourselves. We have to think about the whole web of life. But unfortunately, even with all their ancient wisdom and ecological importance, turtles are facing a lot of threats these days.
Right, you mentioned that earlier. And it's sad to think that these creatures who've survived for so long are now facing their biggest challenges from us, humans.
It is. And understanding these threats is the first step towards protecting them. So let's dive into some of the biggest challenges facing turtles today.
Okay, I'm ready. What are we up against?
Well, habitat loss is a huge problem. As human populations grow, we take up more and more space, and that often means encroaching on turtle habitat.
Like with coastal development, right? Destroying nesting sites for marine turtles.
Exactly. It's heartbreaking to think about these ancient creatures losing the very places they need to survive. And it's not just coastal areas either. Freshwater habitats are being altered and polluted, which is really hurting freshwater turtle populations.
It's a shame that our actions are having such a negative impact on these creatures. And what about things like poaching and illegal trade? I know those are big problems for a lot of endangered species. Are turtles targeted too?
Unfortunately, yes. Turtles are often hunted for their meat and their shells. Plus, there's the exotic pet trade, which is a big threat as well. It's all driven by greed and demand, and it's having a devastating impact on many turtle species, especially those that are already endangered.
It's just tragic. It's like we're pushing them closer and closer to extinction.
It's a real problem. And then there's climate change, which is throwing another wrench into the mix. Rising sea levels and changing temperatures are messing with nesting and hatching success for a lot of turtle species. It's like they're facing challenges on all sides.
It's overwhelming to think about. And then there's all the pollution, especially the plastic pollution in the ocean. I've seen those pictures of turtles entangled in plastic or with plastic in their stomachs. It's heartbreaking.
It is. And it's a major threat to marine turtles. Some species eat jellyfish, and they can easily mistake a plastic bag for a jellyfish.
It's a stark reminder that even our small actions can have big consequences for these creatures.
It really is. So we've got habitat loss, poaching, climate change, pollution. It seems like turtles are facing an uphill battle for survival.
It's definitely a sobering reality,
Uh-huh.
but awareness is key, right? The more we understand the challenges, the more we can do to help.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing here, spreading the word about these amazing creatures and the threats they face. The more people know, the more we can work together to protect them.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, but it does make you appreciate how important these turtles are and how much they need our help.
It really does. And it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot we can do to make a difference, even small things.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Mm.
What can we as individuals do to help ensure the future of these turtles?
Well, one of the best things you can do is support organizations that are dedicated to turtle conservation.
Right, like donate to them or something.
Exactly. Even a small donation can help these groups protect habitats, do research, and educate people about turtles.
That makes sense. What about if you live near a place where turtles nest, like on the coast? Is there anything you can do specifically?
Absolutely. If you're lucky enough to live near a turtle nesting site, it's so important to be respectful and follow any local guidelines.
Like what kind of guidelines?
Well, for instance, avoiding bright lights on the beach at night.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. The lights can confuse the baby turtles when they hatch.
Exactly. They get disoriented and can't find the ocean. It's also really important not to disturb any nests you might see and to keep a safe distance from nesting turtles.
Just give them their space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those simple things can make a huge difference for the survival of turtles and their hatchlings.
It's all about being mindful, respecting their space, and trying to coexist peacefully.
Mm.
What about in our everyday lives? Are there things we can do to help?
Oh, yeah, tons. Reducing our plastic consumption is a big one.
Right.
Plastic bags, straws, all that stuff ends up in the ocean and can be really harmful to marine turtles.
Right, they might mistake a plastic bag for a jellyfish or something.
Exactly. So choose